Australia didn't lose a war. No foreign army marched through Sydney. No flag was lowered in Melbourne. No law was passed in Canberra saying Australians must stop sounding Australian. And yet, listen carefully. In schoolyards, cafes, offices, shopping centers, TikTok videos, podcasts, gaming chats, and casual conversations, something strange is happening. Australians are saying bro more than ever. They are saying trash, fire, lowkey, cringe, takeout, sidewalk, candy dude, period, cap, and y'all. Words that once sounded far away now roll out of Australian mouths like they have always belonged there. And that is the mystery. How does a country begin to speak like another country without being forced? How does a voice change without anyone noticing? And why does it feel like some part of Australia is being quietly rewritten one slang word at a time? This is not just about language. This is about memory. It is about identity. It is about power. Because sometimes a takeover does not come with guns, ships, or soldiers. Sometimes it comes through a screen. Once the Australian voice had its own rough music. It sounded sunburnt, quick, dry, and hard to impress. It could be friendly and sharp at the same time. Australians said, mate, like it meant more than friend. They said, reckon, like every opinion had room for doubt. They said servo, arvo, bottle, low trot, I footy bogan, chuck a sickie, good on ya, and no worries. These words are not just shortcuts. They carried a whole way of seeing the world. Australian slang had a strange magic in it. It made things smaller, funnier, less serious. It took the edge off authority. It made everyday life sound closer to the ground. A service station became a servo. An afternoon became an arvo. A tradesman became a trod-eye. A football match became footy. It was casual, but it was not weak. It was local. It sounded like heat rising from a road. It sounded like laughter outside a pub. It sounded like someone refusing to bow too deeply to anyone. But then another sound began to creep in. Not loudly. Not all at once. First it came through the television in the lounge room. Then through the cinema screen. Then through music videos. Then through YouTube. Then through TikTok. Then through the phone in every pocket. And once it entered the home, it did something powerful. It made American speech feel normal. At first, Australians heard American slang as something from somewhere else. Something actors said. Something rappers said. Something teenagers in American films said while walking past lockers, going to prom, or eating lunch in a school cafeteria that looked nothing like an Australian school. But repetition is a kind of spell. Hear a word once, it sounds foreign. Hear it 100 times, it sounds familiar. Hear it 1,000 times, and one day it comes out of your own mouth. That is how the first invasion happened. It was not military. It was entertainment. Hollywood did not just sell stories. It sold rhythm. It sold attitude. It sold coolness. American characters were not simply speaking. They were teaching the world what certain emotions should sound like. Anger sounded American. Romance sounded American. Rebellion sounded American. Confidence sounded American. Even sadness, comedy, school life, friendship, dating, danger, success, and failure began to arrive in American words. And Australia watched. Then Australia repeated. Then Australia forgot it was repeating. This is where the takeover becomes hard to see. Because nobody feels captured when they are laughing. Nobody feels controlled when they are enjoying a song. Nobody feels their language changing when they are quoting a meme. That is the quiet genius of cultural power. It does not always command you. It invites you. It makes you want to join in. And American slang is very good at this. Words like bro, dude, cringe, flex, fire, cap, vibe, and lowkey do not arrive like boring vocabulary. They arrive carrying energy. They come attached to jokes, music, drama, clips, games, influencers, and viral moments. They arrive with a face, a sound, a mood, a crowd. And when a word gives people a feeling, It travels faster than any official language lesson ever could. This is why young Australians may not feel like they are becoming American when they use American slang. They may feel like they're simply being current. They may feel like they are speaking the language of now. And that is where the danger hides. Because the old Australian words do not always disappear because people hate them. Sometimes they disappear because they start to feel old. Less sharp, less global, less useful online. A teenager might still understand mate, but bro may feel faster in a group chat. They might still know rubbish, but trash may feel funnier in a reaction video. They might still hear lollies at home, but candy may feel more natural after years of American shows. And slowly, the words of one place begin to lose power to the words of everywhere. Before the internet, slang had to travel like a tired traveler. It moved through films, songs, tourists, magazines, and imported television. It took time. It had to cross oceans. It had to be noticed, repeated, and accepted. But now, a phrase born in Los Angeles, Atlanta, New York, or some random American bedroom can reach Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, Hobart, Darwin, and Sydney before the day is over. A young Australian can wake up and scroll through American TikTok creators, then watch American YouTube clips, then play an online game with American players, then listen to American rap, then send messages filled with phrases they heard from strangers on the other side of the world. All before lunch. The border is still there on the map, but in the mind, the border is thinner than ever. The internet did not just connect countries. It mixed their slang into one giant pot. And because America produces so much of the world's online culture, its slang does not enter like a visitor. It enters like background noise. You may not even notice it. That is what makes it powerful. A loud takeover can be resisted. A silent one becomes normal. And then came the algorithm. The algorithm does not care about Australia. It does not care about local memory. It does not care about old words your grandfather used, or the phrases your mother said in the kitchen, or the way your town shaped the sound of your childhood. The algorithm cares about attention. It pushes what keeps eyes on the screen. If a phrase makes people stop, laugh, comment, copy, or share, the algorithm spreads it. It's giving main character energy. Not me. Period. No capítulo. Lowkey. That's wild. Bro really said. These phrases move like sparks through dry grass. They cross countries without passports. They enter accents that were never built for them. And after a while, everyone sounds a little more like the same internet. That may be the strangest part of all. The algorithm has no country. But the culture it spreads often does. And when the most powerful online voices are American, the words that rise to the top often carry an American shadow. This does not mean Australians have stopped sounding Australian. Not exactly. The truth is more complicated. Many Australians are becoming bilingual in slang. They still say mate. They still say reckon. They still say no worries. They still say heaps. They still say keen. They still say arvo. But beside those old words, new words are growing. Bro, dude, trash, fire, vibe, cringe, literally, y'all, period, is not a full replacement, is a remix. Australian English is not dying in one dramatic moment, is being layered over. Old words remain, but new words compete for space. And this is where the story becomes emotional, because language change is normal. Every language changes. Every generation speaks differently from the one before it. But people feel the wound when the words of home start to sound strange in the mouths of the young. A word can carry a childhood. A word can carry a kitchen table. A word can carry a street, a school, a summer, a family, a country. And when that word fades, it can feel as if something invisible has been buried. Not killed, just quietly buried. There's also a hidden divide inside this change. Not everyone hears American slang the same way. Some Australians hear it and think nothing of it. To them, it is normal, global, funny, modern. They grew up online, so American slang does not feel foreign. It feels like the shared language of the internet. But others hear it and feel a kind of irritation, a kind of grief. They hear sidewalk instead of footpath, and something in them tightens. They hear takeout instead of takeaway, and it feels wrong. They hear candy instead of lollies, and it sounds like Australia has been borrowed from somewhere else. Older Australians may hear these words as a loss. Younger Australians may hear the complaint as outdated. City Australians may absorb more global slang. Regional Australians may hold tighter to local words. Online spaces may change faster than real streets. And suddenly, slang is no longer just slang. It becomes a quiet argument about who gets to define Australia. Is Australia the voice of old pubs, country roads, schoolyards, footy clubs, barbecues, and family sayings? Or is Australia now part of a larger digital tribe, where local speech must survive beside a flood of American phrases? That is the tension, and it is happening every day inside ordinary sentences. Think about the words themselves. Servo and gas station, takeaway and takeout, footpath and sidewalk, rubbish and trash, lollies and candy, biscuit and cookie, holiday and vacation, mate and bro, uni and college. One American word is not a disaster. A few borrowed phrases do not destroy culture. But the danger is not one word. The danger is when local words begin to feel weaker, when they feel uncool, when they feel embarrassing, when children know the American word first and the Australian word second, when a country's own speech starts to sound like a costume. That is when language change becomes something deeper, because the words people use are not only tools. They are mirrors. They show what people admire. They show what people imitate. They show where power lives. And right now, much of the cultural power of the English-speaking world flows from America. Hollywood, Netflix, Disney, YouTube, TikTok, hip-hop, gaming, influencer culture, sports media, celebrity drama, online comedy. America does not need to force its slang onto anyone. It only needs to be everywhere. That is enough. Familiarity creates comfort. Comfort creates imitation. Imitation creates habit. Habit becomes identity. And one day, people wake up speaking in phrases their grandparents would have found strange. That is the revelation. The takeover does not happen when people are forced to change. It happens when they stop noticing they have changed. But the story is not simple. American slang is not evil. It is not a curse. Many of these words are creative, funny, expressive, and useful. Some come from powerful cultural movements. Some come from communities that shaped music, style, humor, and internet language across the world. Language is always borrowed. Australian English itself was never pure. It grew from British English, Irish voices, convict slang, indigenous words, migrant speech, working-class humor, and local invention. It has always been mixed. It has always adapted. So the real question is not, should Australian English change? It will change. It always has. The real question is, who is driving the change? Is it local life? Is it real community? Is it Australian creativity? Or is it a machine of global attention, pushing the loudest culture into every mouth? That is why this moment feels different. The speed is different. The scale is different. The influence is constant. In the past, a slang word might take years to settle into a country. Now it can arrive overnight. In the past, a local phrase could survive because the local community repeated it. Now that community competes with millions of voices on a screen, and the screen never sleeps. This is why some people feel fear when they hear Australian children using American words. It is not just fear of slang. It is fear of forgetting. Imagine a future where mate sounds like something from an old movie, where lollies become something only grandparents say, where footpath is corrected to sidewalk, where holiday loses to vacation, where good on ya sounds like a joke, where the old Australian rhythm is still known but no longer lived. A country does not lose itself all at once. It loses tiny pieces. A word here, a phrase there, a joke, a greeting, a name for a place, a sound that once made home feel like home. But this is not the end, because Australian English is tougher than that. It has survived empire. It has survived migration. It has survived television. It has survived class pressure. It has survived being laughed at, copied, flattened, and misunderstood. And still it remains. Still there is mate. Still there is no worries. Still there is reckon. Still there is arvo. Still there is that dry Australian humor that can cut through almost anything. The real battle is not to ban American slang. That would be pointless. The real battle is to keep Australian word alive by using them. Not as museum pieces, not as old decorations, but as living speech. Say them without shame. Teach them without force. Laugh with them. Use them online. Use them in stories. Use them in comments. Use them in songs. Use them in everyday life. Because a language survives when people love the sound of where they come from. That is the hidden truth. Australia is not being silenced. It is being tested. American slang is powerful because it is everywhere. But Australian slang matters because it carries memory. It carries place. It carries humor. It carries the strange, beautiful refusal to sound too polished. It carries the voice of a country that learned to laugh at hardship, shorten everything, and call a stranger mate like the world was still small enough to share. So yes, the linguistic takeover is real, but it is not complete. The battle is happening right now. In every schoolyard, every group chat, every TikTok comment, every cafe, every workplace, every joke, every sentence, every time someone chooses bro, and every time someone still says mate. So what do you think? Is American slang making Australian English more modern? Or is it slowly washing away the sound of Australia? Drop one Australian word or phrase you believe must never disappear. And if you want more hidden language stories like this, subscribe. Because the words we use often reveal the history we forget.